Good morning, students. We have already started the short story, the Sngng lesson, and we have done it. We have read it up to page number 94, first paragraph. Now, before I start today's part, I would like to make you remember the part we left in the previous week. That is, Mrs. Meadows, though she was inside the classroom, but she was roughly instructing her students to go on with the song. In the meantime, she herself was lost in the memory of his fiance, or she was thinking about the later, and last time she when she saw her, how he looked and all right. So from the headmaster's wife, from this part we will be starting today, page number 94, paragraph 2nd. The headmaster's wife keeps on asking me to dinner. It's a perfect nuisance. I never get an evening to myself in that place. So this is the proposal Basil gets from the headmaster's wife, and as she often asks him to come to her place for a dinner. But can't you refuse? Oh well, it doesn't do for a man in my position to be unpopular. Music's gay measure wailed the voices. The willow trees outside the high narrow windows waved in the wind. They had lost half their leaves, the teeny ones that clung wriggled like fishes caught on a line. I'm not a marrying man. The voices were silent. The piano waited. So as we found that Mrs. Meadows, she was muchly lost into her thoughts. She was deeply indulged into her sorrow, into her loss. And in the meantime, it even seems that nature also seems to echo her internal sorrow. Okay, as here we find the reference of willow trees. It's associated with the images of death, and it can be waving, means somehow lamenting outside the high narrow windows. Okay, means here we find these willow trees, they have lost their leaves, and remaining those leaves, those are remaining, those also look like fishes caught on a line. That means soon they are going to get they are going to get dropped. So obviously this image evokes clear impression of death and decay here, as Mrs. Meadows, she is deeply within her heart. All right. Quite good, said Mrs. Meadows. In the meantime, her girls, they were just as she instructed, they were going through it. They were singing in that same manner, and they waited for her instruction to be done next. Quite good, said Mrs. Meadows, but still in such a strange, stony tone that the younger girls began to feel positively frightened. Though she appreciated, though she positively said something, but her tone was so harsh, it was so stony, it was so rough, that and it was so strange that students, they got frightened. But now that we know it, we shall take it with expression. And now, as she said, there must not be any sort of expression, all will be singing all together. Now we find her to get stand beyond from that line. Actually, she is dividing it into now. She first instructed to sing them partly, and now she is instructing them to add expression. Okay, as much expression as you can put into it. Think of the words, girls. Use your imaginations. Fast are too fast, cried Mrs. Meadows. That ought to break out a loud, strong thought, a lament. And then, in the second line, winter drear, make the drear sound as if a cold wind were blowing through it. Drear, said she so awfully that Mary Beasley on the music stool wriggled her spine. The third line should be one crescendo, pretty music's gay measure, breaking on the first word of the last line passes. And then on the word away you must begin to die, to fade, until the listening ear is nothing more than a faint whisper. You can slow down as much as you like, almost on the last line now, please. So Mrs. Meadows, she asks them to sing the song again, and this time with expression, and they must use their own imagination to sing the song accurately. And the meantime, she keeps on instructing them how to utter these words. The word, as for example, we can take that she said the word treer, so in it utter it in such a way that it seems as if a cold wind were blowing through it. So this is what she instructed her girls, and to make this song to make the song sung in a more accurate way. All right. Again the two light taps. She lifted her arms again. Fast, too fast. Again she is getting indulged into the letter once again. Again she is thinking about that, about the letter, and she is going to get indulged into it. All right. Again the two light taps. She lifted her arms again. Fast, too fast, and the idea of sitting down fills me with nothing but disgust. A line from that letter. The very word disgust, it's disturbing her from the beginning. She is much annoyed with the word disgust, as we found that not only Mrs. Meadows, but also the atmosphere, the nature, it also was evoking her in her inner sorrow, inner sadness. The same thing as was revealed, and she is getting involved, getting indulged more and more with the word disgust. Disgust was what he had written. That was as good as to say their engagement was definitely broken off. Their engagement. People had been surprised enough that she had not got engaged. People had been surprised enough that she had not got engaged. The science mistress would not believe it at first. So it was a time when people took much time to believe that she got engaged with someone who is younger to her, and especially the science mistress. Now once again she is getting, again it's a moment when people will be probably might make fun of her, since they can take this their engagement to be broken off in a different way. She was 30, Basil was 25. She was 30. I think I need to I need to take it as the part it is required. Anyway, so she was 30 and Basil was 25. It had been a miracle, simply a miracle, to hear him say as they walked home from the church that very dark night. As I told, that people, they got, it was a bit unbelievable to them, since she was 30 and the boy was of 25, and people, they hardly believed that. It seemed to be a miracle, simply a miracle, to hear such a handsome person to propose her. All right. And he had taken hold of the end of a ostrich feather bow, passes away from the listening ear. In the meantime, the song that was the girls were singing, and Mrs. Meadows was deeply indulged into her thought. Repeat, said Mrs. Meadows. More expression, girls, once more. Fast, too fast. The older girls were crimson. Some of the younger ones began to cry. Big spots of rain blew against the window, and one could hear the willow whispering, "Not that I do not love you." Okay, so as I told, nature also seemed to go with her. Okay, she was her immense, the way she was instructing her girls and everything, it was also means the girls, they were already hurt, as you all already know. All right. "But, my darling, if you love me," thought Mrs. Meadows, "I don't mind how much it is. Love me as little as you like, but she knew he didn't love her. So the letter had its impact so much on her that she began to start thinking that the man did not have any sort of feelings for her. Not to have cared enough to scratch out that word disgust so that she couldn't read it. Even that man, he didn't bother to erase it completely, the very word disgust, which did hurt her the most. So soon autumn yields onto winter drear. She would have to leave the school too. She could never face the science mistress or the girls after it got known. She would have to disappear somewhere. Passes away, the voices began to die, to fade, to whisper, to vanish. So she was deeply into the letter, and she was thinking, if this is the final decision of Basil, then he has to disappear uh, somewhere. Okay, disappear somewhere, and she has to leave the school, otherwise she would be unable to face her students as well as her colleagues. In the meantime, the girls, as they were instructed, they sang the song in the same manner. Suddenly the door opened. A little girl in blue walked fussily up the aisle, hanging red head, biting her lips, and twisting the silver bangle on her red little wrist. She came up the steps and stood before Mrs. Meadows. "Well, Monica, what is it?" Mrs. Meadows, there was a girl, and she came to call Mrs. Meadows, and Mrs. Meadows asked her about the matter. In the meantime, let's see what happens. "Oh, if you please, Miss Meadows said..." Just let me take it in that part. It's taking a bit time to make you. "Oh, yes, if you please, Mrs. Meadows," said the little girl, gasping. "Miss Watt wants to see you in the mistress's room." "Very well," said Mrs. Meadows, and she called to the girls, "I shall put you on your honor to talk quietly while I am away." But they were too subdued to do anything else. Most of them were blowing their noses. Since she was too rough and too stony with the students, and they were already crying. They were not in a good mood at all. They were not enjoying the class at all, rather. So when Mrs. Meadows was called to the room of the headmistress, Mrs. Meadows instructed those girls to remain silent, which was not required at all, because those girls were not in a condition to make any sort of noise over there. The corridors were silent and cold. They echoed to Mrs. Meadows' steps. The headmistress sat at her desk. For a moment she did not look up. She was, as usual, disentangling her eyeglasses, which had got caught in her lace tie. "Sit down, Miss Meadows," she said very kindly, and then she picked up a pink envelope from the blotting pad. "I sent for you just now because the telegram has come for you." So there was a serious issue, a serious emergency. Someone had sent a telegram to Mrs. Meadows, and telegram, as I don't know whether you all have any idea about this or not. Telegram was a certain message. Means it was a kind of it was a medium people generally used to use in a very serious issue, when serious emergency. So when it's telegram, means something bad has taken place, something that is not, means people used to use either in case of excessive happiness or excessive sorrow. So in such a condition, Mrs. Meadows got a telegram. "A telegram for me, Miss What?" "Basil, he had committed suicide," decided Miss Meadows. As I told, the telegram was being in during that time. Telegram used to means people used to send telegram in a very serious issue. So Mrs. Meadows thought that Basil must have committed a suicide. Her hand flew out, but Miss Watt held the telegram back a moment. I hope it's not bad news, she said, so more than kindly, and Miss Meadows tore it open. And what does the telegram say? Let me just uplift it a bit. Pay no attention to, the telegram says, pay no attention to later, must have been mad, but hat stand today, Basil. So the very line, one singular line, made Miss Meadows' day. All right. It says that she must not pay any heed to the letter. In a state of madness, maybe Basil has written that, and he had bought something else for her. She read. She couldn't take her eyes off the telegram. I do hope it's nothing very serious, said Miss Watt, leaning forward. And as Watt was also thinking there must be some bad news, so she observed her and she could understand that there was nothing to be very much serious. Oh no, thank you, Miss Watt, blushed Miss Meadows. It's nothing bad at all. It's, and she gave an apologetic little laugh. It's from my fiance, saying that there was a pause. I see, said Miss Watt, and another pause. Then you have 15 minutes more of your class, Miss Meadows, haven't you? Means Miss Watt could understand that it's not very serious issue and she must not, means means, as we will come to know afterwards, that in that particular school, means telegrams only about serious issues only telegrams get considered. So Miss Meadows was reminded of her class, and yeah, she says, yes, Miss Watt. She got up, she half ran towards the door. Oh, just 1 minute, Miss Meadows, said Miss Watt. I must say I don't approve of my teachers having telegrams sent to them in school hours, unless in case of very bad news, such as death, explained Miss Watt, or a very serious accident or something to that effect. Good news, Miss Meadows, will always keep, you know. So Miss Watt, she reminded Miss Meadows about certain rules of their school. The wings of hope, of love, of joy. Just let me take it up a bit uplifted. Oh, the wings of hope, of love, of joy. Miss Meadows sped back to the music hall, up the aisle, up the steps, over the piano. Page 32. Mary, she said, page 32, and picking up the yellow chrysanthemum, she held it to her lips to hide a smile. Then she turned to the girls, rapped with her baton. Page 32, girls, page 32. Now the girls, she instructed those girls. She went back to the music hall and she instructed the girl. Means she rushed into her classroom, and she was in a very happy and cheerful mood, and all the gloom-ridden feelings, shedding fear or confusion and despair, have all these sort of things, they vanished, and it was rather replaced by joy and happiness. All right, so being in such a jubilant mood, she asks her girls to turn page 32, and those girls, they also start singing. Stop, cried Miss Meadows. This is awful, this is dreadful. And she beamed at her girls. What's the matter with you all? Think, girls, think of what you are singing. Use your imagination. With flowers overladen, baskets of fruit, and ribbon to boot, and congratulate. Miss Meadows broke off. Don't look so doleful, girls. It ought to sound warm, joyful, eager. Congratulate once more, quickly, all together. Now then, means her, as she her mood got changed. Okay, so being in a jubilant mood, she asked those girls to sing just as she instructed them earlier. She says just the opposite of it. So she instructs them to sing it with full expression, and with proper and with certain proper feelings, to see, he asks them to sing it accurately. So as we got to know, and this time, Miss Meadows' voice sounded over all other voices, full, deep, glowing with expression. So, since her own means, as she was much obsessed with the letter, and that only made her to speak out something completely different than what she said at the end. So, this is all about the short story singing lesson. I want each one of you to go through each and every line. We have live class next to it. So if you have any sort of doubt or query, we will definitely get sorted. It will definitely get sorted over there. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.